You saw the slide or a version of the slide in Laurie's presentation, right? Which essentially says, there are billions of devices, there are trillions of connected devices, a lot of money to be made, and so on. So really, there are two ways to look at IoT market: how you can leverage IoT and how you can play in the IoT market. When we did a poll yesterday, I think by a raise of hands, what is the cross-section of attendees? There were a lot of folks who said, hardware plus software, software only, SaaS, and so on. So it was a very nice balance. Essentially, you want to play in the IoT market, primarily in the B2B space, in the medical devices space, you're in industrial internet, industrial automation, and so on. That's the primary place, primary industries which are actually leveraging some of IoT technologies to actually monetize on the services. So if you're in one of these spaces, great. You can really take advantage of the growing trend and make a lot of money. The other thing is clearly, right? Clearly, cloud adoption is continuously increasing. The trend is going upwards. This is a chart that I did a webinar with IDC earlier this year, and we had Amy Connery talk about some of this, and she had a variation of this slide this morning. And it says that, one of every $5 is going to be consumed by the cloud. And this not just limiting to the delivery mechanism, but actually from a business model perspective. Because when you start consuming application services from the cloud, it's no more a perpetual business model. You're looking at other business model, consumption-based, subscription-based, to the point that it's going to grow by almost 35% 2018. And this has a significant impact, right? If you're actually thinking about introducing a recurring revenue strategy into your portfolio, there are a lot of things that are going to change. A lot of things are going to be touched as a process. And we'll talk about how that impacts and so on. The next piece is the mobility side of things. Again, mobility is keeping track with cloud in terms of adoption and growth. And ideally, any application that you deliver would have a mobile interface, would have the ability to move between mobile devices, because that's how millennials are consuming services and applications today. And finally, it's like what I call the adoption of usage-based pricing or consumption-based pricing. Amy Connery again spoke about it this morning about where you can see the value of your application. If you're able to define that clearly, then translating that into a consumption-based pricing model would actually be an ideal balance between the revenue you can see, the top line you can see in your balance sheet, and as well as the buyer's remorse or the buyer comfort in paying the price. So I think going down the usage-based pricing model is probably a very good strategy. However, there are associated technology complexities to enable that, and I hope to believe that we are here to address that. We talked a little bit about what's happening from a market perspective. Let's talk about what's happening from a buyer perspective. Again, today, we had Ray and Amy talk about the rise of the millennials. And what that essentially means is there's a new breed of buyers that are coming up who are actually procuring software, services, and the way they consume, the way they buy is very different from how you were used to for the last maybe even 5-10 years back. Things are changing dramatically. 98% of an IT procurement sale starts off from a web search. What that essentially means is when you go in as a sales rep or as account manager into your customer and start talking about, in our case, Gemalto products, they already know about it because the journey has started. 57% of the buying process is complete before the first sales rep has even started the conversation. Huge impact, meaning you cannot go to your customers and start saying, hey, here's our culture, here's our organization, 10,000 people. They already know that. So it's about actually understanding what your customer's organization is about and aligning your first conversation right from there. Here's a cartoon, right? What this essentially means. Here's this guy saying that, I'm going to go through a 12-step sales process. But in reality, the customer is ready to make the decision step 5. And that actually personifies how easy or difficult it's going to be to sell now, because your buyer is a lot more aware and a lot more intelligent. The last point to the data about buyers is, a lot of buying decision, especially IT-related buying decision, are going to be significantly impacted from the CMO's budget, because what this essentially means is they expect any application or service to tie into a business value. So as sales, as marketing, we need to focus on what's the business value that my application, my service is giving to the customer, and what that means from a go-to-market perspective, right? The third part to the whole buyer piece is the view of the product. 5 years ago, your customer engagement would start off by introducing the product, introducing the company, going through a quote, going through a sales negotiation, and finally they would go to a bake-off, and then a product buy decision was taken, right? Now it's completely different. The first step is actually giving the product in the hands of the user. They start playing with it, they like it, then they go back to, say, you do a trial conversion and you start moving up the value chain from then. And this is a very, probably very, very pictorial image of inverting the pyramids. And this is literally how it is. You need to get the product in the hands of the customer as soon as possible. We talked about how the market's changing, the buyer profile is changing, the way your product engagement is changing. And realistically, when all these are changing, what's going to happen is your go-to-market is going to change. And when your go-to-market changes, essentially that means the way you look at your quote-to-cash process, that's going to significantly change. Historically, this will be how your quote-to-cash looked like, right? You start with an order, then once you finish, start with the opportunity management, which, you track orders, and then you go through the solution design, fulfillment, you manage the orders, finally you see revenue. Probably then you're thinking about renewals if you're not in a perpetual mode. Instead of renewals, it's probably maintenance in most cases. What are the sub-process into this entire order-to-cash process? You're looking at creating leads on the opportunity management side, managing a quote, packaging the solution, capturing, validating your order. Really, the only place where licensing has a significant impact in the quote-to-cash process as of maybe 8 to 10 years ago is probably on the installation and activation, and to some extent on the packaging piece here on the solution design and pricing. And then we have revenue and renewal.
Because I think one thing that has happened, at least traditionally, is that the revenue recognition event happens at the time that you deliver, the email or whatever, not the time that you actually do the license installation. So, that's been very traditional. That's when it happens, especially if you're in a perpetual delivery situation.
And now think about it, right? We talked about how the pyramids are getting inverted. The product needs to come into your hands first. You need to be able to do trials. I don't think this particular quote-to-cash process is going to cut it with the way the market is changing right now. Let's look at it and see, what's missing in this quote-to-cash process. What's missing? No, it's the same quote-to-cash process. It's on purpose. Customer engagement, right? At no point in the quote-to-cash process that you're seeing blurred out in the back that, there is a clear product engagement step that's missing. And because customer engagement is missing, and the way the process is structured in a very, very linear manner, it's very difficult to introduce, manage, and actually track new business models. New business models could be subscription-based, it could be consumption-based, it could be value-based, outcome-based, and so on. Really, a linear process doesn't lend itself very well to address some of the new changes that are coming. Next piece is intelligence. Is there any mechanism to capture intelligence in this whole process in terms of what and how the customer is using your application? And I'll get in a moment why that's really important, but there is no way that you're capturing that today. The experience is, we just heard Jam talk about experience from a licensing perspective, and then earlier Julie about customer success, right? Really what's driving is your ability to control and manage the customer experience through the engagement. And it's about the customer experience is going to come with the product, through the process. It's not going to be just a sales experience. It's going to be product. It's going to be marketing. It's going to be all the functions of the company are need to align to close the sale. And finally, if you take a linear approach to the quote-to-cash process, you really don't have the flexibility to add a solution view to how you go-to-market today. Because dynamically, you need to keep adding, subtracting offerings to see based on which customer and what their problems and needs are, you take the solution view. Again, going back to that initial slide about understanding your customer's problem, right? 57% of the customers have already done the research about you. So you need to go day one, understand their problem and start aligning your product more from a solutions perspective. I had some nice animation, it's gone. But anyway, the code. The code to cash process, right? It's no more a linear process. It's now got to be cyclical. Up there at the top, you start with opportunity management. Opportunity management is not limited to just calling in customers, getting them leads into the system. It's about giving them access to your application, to your software, to your service. And again, if 57% of the customers are already researching a product, the best way you can increase stickiness with these customers is get them to start a trial. Help them through the trial conversation even before you start engaging with them on a pure sales basis, right? And here's where the software monetization starts having significant impact. Now, when you start doing trial provisioning, you can do a time-based trial, you can do a feature-based, feature-limited trial, you can do probably capacity-based trial. There are multiple ways you got to limit a trial so that you're not leaving money on the table, so that you still have the customer getting a feel and look and liking your product, but at the same time you're not leaving money. So ideally a software monetization solution at the background running is going to enable that. Next piece is solution design. Almost every application industry is getting pretty crowded. So you need to have the ability to bundle packages, solutions, and add value in multiple different ways to start differentiating your services vis-a-vis your competition. And again, having a very strong entitlement management system and having a view of how valuable your product is and where the value is being derived would enable that bundling and flexible packaging strategy, right? Third, manage orders. Oftentimes, I talk to customers and I hear that, I have my application in the market, I have my service in the market, and then I have different version going around different customers, and somebody wants to upgrade. They make a call to the organization, somebody takes a change request, sends them an updated license key, updated dongle, sends them the updated features. Very cumbersome, very time consuming, and in the long run it's going to hit on the bottom line, right? Now you need to have the ability to manage some of these upgrades real time in the field. Enable functionality like in-app purchases. Same benefits that you see in a B2C world can be translated into the B2B world. How often have you played a video game and then it gave a pop-up, for an additional 50 cents, you get better performance on your car, better performance on your rifle. So it's the same concept, right? Now you need to be able to translate some of that from a B2C landscape into the B2B landscape, and again, having the right software monetization strategy in the background would help. Order fulfillment. Here's where it starts, the customer experience starts playing in. And I'll tell you why. When you start talking about order fulfillment, there are three things that have happened already by the time you get there. The customer most probably has had access to the application, service, or product that you're given them. Second piece, they have had access to the operational view of your organization to be able to, how easy is it to activate, install, and manage the product. And finally, they actually start seeing what's the value that the product gives in order to fulfill whatever is their pain point that they have. Really, two steps are completely in your control, which is the activation piece and which is the experience piece. The third, of course, if the product is great, it's going to solve the problem. And the ability to actually control that is very powerful, considering that they are probably still in their trial phase and probably still at a basic level of the product. And having the right software monetization solution which can make sure that the customer experience is smooth and easy, which then takes the customer intelligence at this time. What I mean by customer intelligence here is they've started playing with the trials, and you can actually capture how diligent or how heavy of a trial user they are. If they are really continuously using your application, they are more likely to convert. If they are not using your application, there's a high chance that they are hitting a roadblock, maybe some amount of training, maybe some amount of having a sales rep call them and say, hey, think about it, do you need some help, would actually push them towards the conversion basis. So you need to have the platform to be able to do that. Revenue management. The old model, probably a linear model, had one business model, which was perpetual license. When you start looking at the new business models that you can actually bring to market, the subscription-based, consumption-based, the ability to do in-app purchases, the ability to actually handle value-based and so on. And the complexity doesn't just stop with the kind of model that you use. It starts impacting revenue recognition. It starts impacting multiple different things. Case in point is, think about a perpetual license. You pay a chunk of change, you drop it to the customer, you really don't care if it is shelfware or not. He's paid you your $1 million, a sales rep, you've got the quota, you're done and you're out. But in the case of a revenue, recurring revenue model, you're given the application. If after 2 cycles he stops paying, customer stops paying, you need to shut the service, because that's leaving money on the table, or that's leaving. So that's really important. Or on the other hand, every year he needs to renew. So as an organization, your entire operational, marketing, and sales engine needs to be aligned to that. And software monetization becomes a key element in that. Finally, renewal management, right? Again, you see customer experience coming there, because now you want them to continue to use your solution. You want to see how you can sell them other solution. Again, take that customer intelligence, take that usage information that you gather, and if there is an entitlement management solution or whatever is the product, you find that they are a heavy user, you gave the product away at a discount, possibly it's a good time as I need to go back and ask for a contract negotiation and ask them to pay more. If you feel they are a very light user, huge amount of initial payment has gone in, you invest some sales training resources to make sure that they continue to remain your customer and do not churn. So when you start taking this cyclical view of your quote to cash process, right, it aligns much better to what's happening and what's changing in the market today. In order to achieve that, you need certain essential technical building blocks or technology building blocks. So I put together what is a rough digital business architecture with some of the key elements that are going to be critical in driving this transformed Q2C process, right? You need to have the ability to set up packages, bundles, stitch together different solutions, and that would come from an entitlement management solution. You need to be able to manage entitlements, which ideally in real time, near real time, you're able to update, allow access to customers, take away access, be able to handle multiple different licensing models such as recurring, consumption-based, time-based, count-based, and so on. The critical customer intelligence, or what I refer to as true application usage, is going to come from the usage information. And within our software monetization portfolio, the connected licensing, which Kapil talked about earlier in the day, would be a key building block to be capturing that usage information and giving you the ability to leverage that. Finally, the purpose of software monetization, not just on the monetization, but also on ensuring that security is a critical pillar around it, right? So you want to protect against IP theft, you want to protect against reverse engineering. So on top of your digital service or digital app or digital good, you have the first monetization layer, which is essentially the foundational elements. Then once you have these foundational elements in place, you next have what's called the commerce layer. You now need to have the ability to manage recurring revenue or recurring billing, the ability to handle subscription and so on, giving your end users, giving your customers the option to do in-app purchases, the ability to purchase from a website, additional features, change plans, so on, is again, historically research has proven that it increases your conversion rate, increases how much of the consumer surplus you can capture from your customers. And finally, being able to manage payments, capture payments, taxes, multi-geography. I mean, most of us are talking about global organizations today. You need to have the ability to handle multiple currencies, multiple tax laws, and so on. That's from a commerce perspective. The third piece is the CRM marketing automation. Of course, ERP is a critical component, and that's a given in most organizations today. On the CRM marketing automation side, you need to get customer information. You need to know who your customer is. Marketing automation, you need to have the ability to drive promotions, marketing, maybe marketing discounts, and other across the board initiatives that could probably drive adoption, drive usage, drive additional revenue. This architecture, right, it does two things. It gives you the ability to transform quote to cash, which is clear. Also, it gives you the ability to go after that incremental revenue that you can capture as a result of being able to do your pricing, being able to do your in-app purchases, and then constantly making your customer go to areas of the application which they have not visited, giving them an opportunity to upgrade. Case in point is, say, they buy, for a lack of better example, Microsoft Excel, and you broke up Excel into a basic and an advanced version, where the basic version would give you access to tables, maybe some basic formulas and so on, and charge them $9, and additional features such as pivot tables, macros, maybe $2. For a month or so, you charge them the basic, and then you have a marketing automation says, for the next 3 weeks, you can access the macros and pivot tables for free. If you like it at a small price point, you can come on board. That's the way you can get your customers on board. In a recurring revenue model, in a subscription model, what Amy spoke about in the morning is the customer lifetime value. It's also about making sure you get your customer into your product. The moment you have them captured, then you can get value, you can show value to them, and also you can get revenue from them. Finally, I know we've got a mix of people here. What would it be to go through the 60, 90, 120 and beyond plan when it comes to a transformation project of this nature, right? Usually any business transformation, is a cross-functional initiative because it cuts across marketing, finance, sales will have a great say in it, and product. At least these 4 functions at the minimum will be there. So check within your organization if there's any transformation going on. I'm pretty sure that there'll probably be a team. If not, I think it's a great place to get started, get some buy-in from the senior leadership, and initiate maybe a team to start looking at what it would take to do a transformation around your models and so on. Identify the goals. It could be, the transformation goal could be like adding a subscription revenue stream to it. It could be additional channels. It could be going after new markets. 90 days, once you have your defined goals, then really understand what's the value that your application, service, or software is giving to the market, right? Once you have that quantified, you'll get a picture will start forming in terms of what's the market definition, what's the market that you're targeting. And once you have that market that you're going after, the segmentation steps start. Okay, within probably the medical devices market, there are 5 sub-segments: consumables, large equipment, and so on, right? And then once you have your markets in place, then you start looking at what's your GTM, what are the specific offerings you're going to bring into the market, and then the interesting piece starts coming, which is the pricing, the licensing, and so on. And yesterday, I think Jake mentioned in the panel discussion that, you want to get the software monetization folks involved as early as possible, because, they can enable and build that, be a critical part of the transformation journey, because now more than ever there are multiple steps that there's a direct impact of what we do here. And finally, once you got the basic building blocks in place, it's about picking the right technology solution. Ideally, I would say get our Gemalto stack. We have a bunch of partners around this space, and briefly mentioned that in the morning in the ecosystem discussion. And once you have the technology in place, then you can start on the change management and execution. Yes, so that's done. Before I do a Q&A, just quickly want to tell why I have this slide on the right. Really, it gives an idea of the vision of the Gemalto software monetization technology. Any channel, any business model, any delivery mechanism, and any device. Pretty much comprehensive any. So immaterial of what your use cases are, we can align the Gemalto solutions, our SM solutions, to address some of those. So thank you. And any questions that you have?
So in this great new world, with you have CRM plus marketing automation, would you say that the CRM system would be a little bit different from traditional CRM systems, or is it even needed if you have a touchless sales model?
Okay, that's a great question. So there are 2 points to it, right? One is what's the change in the CRM system, and the second piece is what's the change in the sales model. Let's first talk about the CRM piece. Ideally, Salesforce.com is ruling the roost, simply because they're cloud-based, ultra flexible, and they are churning out updates and churning out releases probably every quarter or so. So as the business models change, as the market changes, they're able to bring out relevant features and functionality to align with that. So to answer the CRM question, ideally I would go with a cloud solution, simply because that you want something which is future-proofing your business and also which is scalable. To address the second part, which is it going to be touchless sales? I don't think it's going to be completely touchless sales. If you think about the funnel, right? Previously, marketing was involved in only getting leads into the funnel, and pretty much what happened was they handed over to sales once it was a qualified lead. What's happening now is that process is still going to exist, where once in certain large cases qualified leads, and it's going to go down to the funnel to sales. The other channel which marketing is starting to take over is the trials piece, because that's something that's an option that sales can't scale. Marketing, on the other hand, they can track who has got the trials, how they are using it, what's happening, and so on. So once a trial conversion takes place, and typically what happens in a post-trial conversion, invariably you convert to a basic service. And once that basic service, the conversion's taken place, then you hand it over to sales to cross-sell, upsell, and expand the footprint. So it's not necessarily going to be a touchless sale. It's just going to be a delayed involvement of sales in a segment of the market. So CRM is still relevant, and marketing automation is still relevant. It becomes just more relevant or slightly different.
And then for the trial to the basic conversion, would you advocate in a B2B environment of collecting credit card information upfront prior to signing up for the trial, or you just give it away and only when they sign up for the basic credit card information?
That's a great question. So typically what happens, right, in the B2B context, what's changing? Users come in, they use a platform or a solution, one user in one team. And I'll give you an example with me. So the other day somebody called me from an organization called Achieve It. And what they do is because they saw my profile in LinkedIn which says strategy, they have a platform which you can track strategic projects. So they have mechanisms of doing that. So they called me and said, I'll let me do a demo for you, let me give you a trial access. No credit card information at this point. Their goal is, they will set up a trial maybe for 2 users or 3 users. and then give it to me to play with, create my projects. And expectation and hope is, being in an organization like Gemalto, which has probably thousands of employees, I'm going to get Jam, Julie, couple, and once it hits the 3 people threshold, I'm going to call my CIO, or then I might swipe a credit card, I might not. Most likely I won't if I'm in an organization like Gemalto. So most trials in the B2B case are going to be given as a limited functionality or limited time. Credit card, the only time I have used a credit card as a business user has been on the AWS marketplace, where I had to swipe my credit card just because I needed to do a demo. But in business-facing applications, it's more likely that the trial would be a functional trial or a time-based trial.
Right, but in this particular case, a salesperson manually processed you and they qualified you.
In this particular case, actually, it turned out because email popped up, I clicked on it, I saw the webinar, and then once I saw the webinar, what the platform does, then another email came, this time from a specific sales rep guy. And then he followed up and said, can I do a call? So still now, I don't know if it's a sales guy. I know it's an inbound lead. It could be a sales guy. And it still could be that, once I picked up the conversation, he did a quick demo of the solution. His title it said inside sales. So, and then once that is done, then you have the piece where probably switches. So companies, it's different to different. If I had decided, no, when I saw their website and clicked on free trial, I would have taken a different route. And then probably once the free trial happened, after 30 days, I would have got an email from a sales guy. Hey, we saw you went through a free trial. What's happening? No credit card. That's what, right? There's a big difference between a 0-cent transaction and a 1-cent transaction. You drop by almost 60-70% in that 1 cent. Any other questions? How are we on time? Are we carrying any more? Okay, 4:30. Thank you.